Folks, we are canvassing this community. We know for a fact that 72% of you are housing Charlie McAvoy and 79% of you are housing Tyson Barrie. They are a menace to this fantasy world of no value. For whatever reason, some of you stand by them. Some of you defend them. Some of you say their time is coming. Some might argue that they worship at the feet of Voldemort. So I say drop them now. Bring them to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast for sentencing because they are on bust watch. Oh, Charlie McAvoy. Man, I swear we have a crusade every single year to get him under 50% owned. It's such a challenge. And now he's got a friend. Now it's Tyson Barrie that joins him in there. Yep, it's both of them now. Now, I want to preface this whole episode or show with just the saying that I like to have, that people like to touch nice things. And what I mean by that is that when you see teams like Toronto or Boston that are good teams, they also have a lot of fans and they have a lot of hype around them. People like to go deeper on them. They're willing to wait on players a little bit longer than you would for, say, someone on Ottawa or someone on the Rangers. People hold on to them and hope for something to happen. For whatever reason, they're like, oh, well, but they're on a good team. Sergachev is another one that's very similar. They're like, oh, I got to hold because they're on a good team. Something might happen. What if they get top deployment? And yet, time and time again, we've been shown that deployment's not going to come. And so, yes, these two players are droppable. And Tyson Barrie should have been moved a long time ago. And quite frankly, more likely than not, the ship has sailed on that. You probably missed the boat on trading him. And so what I want to do in this episode is not so much tell you a verdict of drop or not. They're both droppable. I want to give you actual reasons, because if you're on the fence, you shouldn't be. And I want to give you hard, concrete evidence of why you should not be holding on anymore to these two players. And so let's start first with the guy from the Toronto Maple Leafs in Tyson Barrie. Before we jump into Tyson Barrie, I will say that for both Charlie McAvoy and Tyson Barrie, the story is less about statistics and more about deployment. That's the most important thing with these two, and that's the thing that makes them less valuable. So let's start with Tyson Barrie on Frozen Pool and take a look at just the last 3 games to give us an example of what's been going on. So at 5-on-5, Tyson Barrie and Jake Muzzin get the majority of the time, 32% of the time. Now, they're actually second in Corsi for percentage, though, to Morgan Rielly and Cody Ceci. So they're not the best 5-on-5 pairing, but they do get the lion's share of the time. Now, one of the reasons I suspect that is because Morgan Rielly gets the lion's share of the power play. Morgan Rielly got, over the last 3 games, 62% of the power play, while Tyson Barrie got only around 24% of the power play. There's no hope for Tyson Barrie to take over the top power play unless Morgan Rielly gets injured. That's your only hope. Your only hope is that Morgan Rielly gets injured. Morgan Rielly is killing it this year. He's playing exactly like he did last year. And to assume that Tyson Barrie should just take it over because he's better or whatever reasons that I saw a lot of people tell us early in the season, it's just not going to happen. This is Morgan Rielly's spot to lose. And right now, he's not losing it. He'd have to go on a ridiculously bad tear for probably like 10 games, a span in which you could pick up Tyson Barrie if you saw that start to happen. You would start to see Tyson Barrie maybe get some opportunities on that top power play. As of now, you don't see it at all. Now, if we take a look at the actual power play that Tyson Barrie is on, he's on the second unit with Zach Hyman, Nick Petan, Kasperi Kapanen, and Jason Spezza. Awful power play unit. If you're Toronto, you don't want that unit on the ice. And if you look at the last 3 games, Tyson Barrie's actually only been on the ice during the power play. It might have been 24% of the power play time on ice, but it only amounted to 6 Corsi 4 opportunities, which are all shot attempts, unblocked, missed, and on net. That's not a lot, because if you're on the ice for very little amounts of Corsi 4, and that means you're just not going to have as many opportunities to get in on goals, because less goals will inherently happen because there's less shots on net or shots in general. And so Tyson Barrie has a huge issue from a deployment perspective. Now, technically, they are the second line, according to Daily Faceoff, but again, from an actual deployment perspective, they are the top line at even strength. Now, let's get into his stats really quick. I'm not going to go too much into his stats because really there's not much to say there. Again, the nail in the coffin for Tyson Barrie should simply be that he's not on top power play. And why is that? Because when you look at last year on Colorado, he was on a 62-point pace. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the season, many people projected Tyson Barrie to actually get 60 points this year, which I thought and Brandon thought was absolutely insane. It made no sense how in the world Tyson Barrie was going to get 60 points. And the reason for that was because Tyson Barrie last year, 40% of his points came on the power play. 40%. That's a lot of power play points, 25 in total. And you know how many he's going to get this year? A fraction of that. An absolute fraction of that. So at best, let's assume that Tyson Barrie gets his same even strength points. You're still seeing a reduction of 40%. At the moment, he's shooting at 0%. So you're seeing probably 2 goals that he should have at the moment that he doesn't. And so really you're looking at probably a pace of 30-ish points at most. I think 30, 35 points is what you're seeing out of Tyson Barrie. That's not very good. His shots are the same pretty much as last year to an extent on a 217 shot pace. Everything is red on the in-season tool pretty much. Almost everything. I mean, his hits pace is mediocre. His blocks pace is mediocre. Doesn't get penalties, so he's not worth it in a banger league. His shots as of late have actually been really good. Over his last 3 games, he's shooting at a 383 shot pace. So that's actually bringing up his season totals of 217 shot pace. Before this last week, it was way lower. So he's not getting you shots. He's not getting you hits. He's not getting you blocks. He's not going to get you power play points. His point pace right now is only 21. If you give him the 2 goals that he's missing and bring that up to 7, he's on a 29-point pace. So yeah, there's not a lot to get excited about with Tyson Barrie. To me, like I said, he's a 30 to 35 point defenseman. That's not really worth rostering. And if we take a look at last year on Hockey Reference really quick, the average time on ice in total is the same. His average time on ice from last year to this year is actually pretty much exactly the same. The big difference is just the power play percentage. Last year, he played 93% of Colorado's power play time on ice. Currently, he is only playing 42% of Toronto's power play time on ice. That's simply not good enough. And that's just it for Tyson Barrie, really. There's not a lot to say there. There's not a lot to show you. It just everything looks bad for him. He's a good defenseman in a tough situation. He's the second fiddle in Toronto, and he's not getting it done 5-on-5 at the moment. And I don't see where that 5-on-5 comes from for him. Maybe a little bit better on ice shooting percentage, but other than that, it's not very good. His IPP last year wasn't very good. It was only 54%. He's currently at 26%. Really, the deployment is the nail in the coffin. And quite frankly, you could most likely drop Tyson Barrie and no one's going to pick him up. He's going to sit there. No one's going to grab him. I mean, if we're seeing the likes of John Klingberg get dropped, right? Why is Tyson Barrie still being owned? Aside from the fact that Toronto is good, aside from the fact that people have high hopes for Toronto, that's the only reason. So I can't advocate strongly enough that pretty much in every single league except for a dynasty or a very, very deep keeper, Tyson Barrie is totally droppable. And sure, try to shop him around and see what you can get. But honestly, you've probably missed the boat. It's probably too late to sell. I would right now use him as a streamer spot. He's worth way more as a streamer spot for like an Adam Fox, for example. I like Adam Fox way more than Tyson Barrie at the moment. And it's not even about liking Adam Fox. It's just that ability to swap in defensemen who are hot. Worth way, way more than Tyson Barrie. So with Tyson Barrie talked about, let's move into Charlie McAvoy. See, Charlie McAvoy is funny because he's different from Tyson Barrie. He's not on a new team, so nothing has really changed for him, nothing drastic. The problem is he's just never been worth it. He's just hyped up and people like to touch nice things and want someone on Boston. And for whatever reason, I think people like hope that that Torrey Krug gets injured and McAvoy will take over. There was also hopes that Torrey Krug gets traded and Charlie McAvoy gets to take over. And yet we're seeing Matt Grzelcyk on the top power play while Torrey Krug is out. And if that's not a death sentence, I don't know what is. So let's jump into the deployment for Charlie McAvoy, and let me really drive the nail into the coffin here for him in terms of fantasy. So Charlie McAvoy and Zdeno Chara is a pairing that has been happening a lot recently. These are the last 3 games. They've frequented 17% of the time, and then you have Matt Grzelcyk and Charlie McAvoy as a pair, which has actually been fantastic. Their Corsi for percentage is 69%, which is awesome. 14% of the time at even strength there. So Charlie McAvoy's getting some decent even strength time. It's on the power play where he's struggling. Over the last 3 games, Torrey Krug still features 57.4% of the power play. Matt Grzelcyk is 23%. And the Matt Grzelcyk and Charlie McAvoy pairing was only 14%. And so Charlie McAvoy has not had a lot of power play time. Now, if we go to just this last game, so this was the first one with Charlie McAvoy having the opportunity to be top power play. Matt Grzelcyk, this is insane. In the last game, while Charlie McAvoy had the opportunity to take that top power play and run with it, because finally what everyone hoped to happen happened. Torrey Krug got injured. This is the time for Charlie McAvoy to shine, and Matt Grzelcyk got 93% of the power play time. 93%. Yep. Charlie McAvoy didn't even get like 25% of the power play time. That's just sad. That's truly, truly sad. I mean, PK Subban has better prospects to get top power play at this rate than Charlie McAvoy does. And yet everyone is like, okay, yeah, dump John Klingberg, dump PK Subban. And yet let me hold on to Charlie McAvoy. Let me hold on to Tyson Barrie. Charlie McAvoy is worth nothing. And it's getting worse. So now let's take a look at the in-season tool and take a look at some of his stats here. So from last year he only played 54 games, was on a 43-point pace. He's currently on an 18-point pace. Lovely, right? His time on ice is pretty much exactly the same as last year. What's really concerning to me about Tyson Barrie I keep saying Tyson Barrie when I mean Charlie McAvoy. That's the problem. They're literally the same player. The problem with Charlie McAvoy to me, one of the big ones is, one, his on-ice shooting percentage is exactly the same as last year. To a T. It's a negative 0.69% difference. To a T, the same as last year for on-ice shooting percentage, which is good in one way. His IPP is low compared to last year. It's about half. Last year, he was about 38%. Right now, he's sitting at around 70 or 17%. So really low compared to last year. So his IPP could come up. So he's probably missing a few assists. That's fine. So let's give him, 3 assists missing, right? So if he's missing around 3 assists, cool. That's a 32-point pace. Fine. Good for you, Charlie McAvoy. You're on a high on-ice shooting percentage team, so you get to benefit a little bit there. What's really, really concerning is his power play time on ice. It's gone down yet again compared to last year. So last year, he got just about 1.5 minutes of average power play time on ice per game. It's gone down about 17% this year. His actual power play percentage has gone down 28%, which is really concerning. Last year, he featured on around 33% of Boston's power play time. This year, he's featuring on only 24%. That's not good. That's really, really low. And again, his offensive zone starts have also gone down. Offensive zone starts last year were at about 48%. It's 36% this year. His hits pace is up a little bit, not by much. I mean, if 159 hit pace is good for you, then cool. His blocks pace is 141, so he adds some value there a little bit. But, he only adds value really if you're in like a, I don't even know, like a 14-teamer, or you're rostering 6 defensemen, something like that. At some point, he becomes a specialist. But if you're holding him for specifically points upside, unfortunately, folks, it's not there. It is not there. I don't know where I can point to say, like, here's where points are going to come from. There's only one place that I could do that with, and that's pointing at the power play and saying, oh yeah, when Torrey Krug gets injured, or if he gets traded or something, that's where he'll be. And that didn't happen. Matt Grzelcyk featured for 93%. There's nothing to Charlie McAvoy here, unfortunately. Again, one of those guys that I'd say sell, but I think everyone knows at this point who he is. And it's just not worth holding on. He's the same as Tyson Barrie in that 35-point defenseman is worth way more to just have a streamer. It's worth way more to have a streamer. Of course, try to sell, but the boat has sailed. I'd say the boat sailed last year. And of course, again, it gets into that thing of if you're in a very, very deep league, or if you're in a dynasty, then it's a little bit different. And I hope you have point defensemen around him and that you weren't relying on him for your points. They're both very similar players, and they both should not be 70% owned. They should be far, far lower. And if you own him, I truly hope you heed my advice and drop early, because I know for a fact that every single season, weeks later, like let's say week 13 or something, we get tons of questions from frustrated Charlie McAvoy owners who ask us, why isn't Charlie McAvoy doing anything? And we can only point and say, nope, he's doing stuff. This is just who he is. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know who you want to hear on Bust Watch, and go drop Charlie McAvoy and Tyson Barrie, please. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.